Before I open up the panel, I want to know you just a little bit better. I find you to be an intriguing woman. I really do.
Okay, I'll take that.
You were born in London.
Yes.
And you were raised in Ghana?
Mixture between the two.
When you were a child, your parents were political officials in Ghana, and there was a coup, right?
Yeah.
And you were under house arrest for 2 years. Could you tell us about the experience and how it transformed your life?
Traumatic, painful. Really, it's as an adult when you look back and you think about the impact of something like that. It was '66. A lot of the men, my father was a politician at the time, the men were not actually in their homes, so it was really women at home, at night, in bed, kids in bed, when the tanks rolled up to houses, and you had soldiers, many of them very young, 20, 21, with guns, and I know a soldier pointed a gun at my mum's head. And the idea was she was supposed to be dead, and we were there, her kids were there. Next door neighbors, that was the children of Kwame Nkrumah, who was the president. They put them down on their knees, gathered them round in a circle. The intention was to assassinate people. You know, people died, lost their lives. It was a really horrific night. And it was 2 years under house arrest with my mother trying to get all her kids out of the country. And she eventually did. But I think it was when I grew older, I became a journalist, and the 40th anniversary of Ghana, being in Ghana, finally asking my mother what happened. We didn't even know that our fathers were not in the house at the time.
Oh, really? Because you were so young?
Because we were so young, and it was never spoken about. It was never spoken about, which I think is part of the trauma. And
part of your trauma, you said?
Yeah, part of ours, certainly part of the families, and part of so many families. It just became this silent thing that was in your home, but it was never discussed.
Now, in an interview on 60 Minutes with Steve Kroft, Obama said he thought he could find common ground with Republicans by advancing health care proposals that had been introduced by Republican administrations, as well as potential presidential candidate Mitt Romney when he was governor of Massachusetts. Why couldn't they find common ground this time?
Earth to Obama. It's not going to happen, okay? They don't care. They want you out. Forget about this bipartisanship and get your FDR on, like the brother said, okay? It's not going to happen. Their agenda is to keep him out, to make him a one-term president. And the thing is, as it was pointed out, even in the positions that they've taken the initiative on, when he says, okay, let's do it, they back off.
They say, no, we don't want to do it.
And it's really unfortunate that he's in such a difficult position, because the American society really fears an angry black man, so Obama cannot really get tough.
Yes, he can. If that's a last resort, yes,
I say he needs his surrogates. He needs to have Biden. He needs to have these spokespersons out here laying down the law and saying what's been going on.
The president needs to get his black man on.
It's not going to work.
He needs to be a brother. He needs to become the street fighter he was when he was running for president. Okay, it's not that it's beneath him. He pulled it out when he was running against Hillary and all those shenanigans that was going against him. And remember, he said, okay, time to take the gloves off. All right, let's get real. This is what he needs to do now, because he's in crisis mode. And if he doesn't find some way to turn this around, he will not be reelected with all the great things he said. And it's interesting that the brother mentioned universal health care and how these senators are getting it, because they do. It's called the Federal Employees Health Benefits Program. People, look it up. The Federal Employees Health Benefit Program, and they get them senators that are talking against universal health care. Guess what, people? They're getting a form of universal health care.
Okay.
And with no pre-existing conditions, all the things that we want that they're saying that we can't have, they get themselves.
Okay, Esther, I want to hear your point of view.
I disagree with you both, actually.
Very calmly.
I mean, I think President Obama is the brother who he is, and he's never going to become what people need him to become in order to be a different type of president. I just don't think that's who he is. But I think that that's not necessarily why this won't work. But I do agree, the reality is the Republicans will fight against what's even in their best interest, as long as they are on the opposite side of President Obama. And the reality of recognizing that that will be their truth up until 2012, it means for the Democrats, what will be your strategy when the Republicans show you again and again that this is what they're going to do? What you can't do is keep saying to us, but the Republicans keep saying no. We can see that. We saw that before you did. The question is, what will your new strategy be, given that that's who they're going to be? What are you going to do? How are you going to lead? And I think President Obama, as a man, he's shown this again and again. He is a consistent, methodical, thoughtful man. I think that is actually who he is. I think the way he manifests anger is not, that's just who he is. I don't think it's about him being someone else, but I do think it's about the Democrats recognizing you need a really serious, hardcore strategy to deal with the kind of impotence that the Republicans impose on the Democrats, because they have got their eye on 2012 and they are not playing.
Okay, well said. Move on because of time. This is really getting juicy and interesting, but we promised our viewers that we will move on to Color Girls.
And there's 4 Color Girls.
Yes,
1, 2, 3, 4.
Thank you so much.
I had never seen a production of Ntozake Shanga's for Color Girls, but I had read the book and really loved it. And I think that Tyler Perry, who is a man who deals and suffers with his untreated trauma, I think that is manifest on the big screen. And I think that the additions that he makes to the film are specifically a reflection of his untreated trauma. So I think so many of the women are punished in terms of their sexuality, in terms of their choices, and I think it gives a very conservative, evangelical, Christian idea of what things should be. I think it's saint and sinners, it's gods and demons, it's hell or heaven, and I think women are blamed for everything. I think the beauty of it, though, is I think about the young women that I mentor, and I love the fact that I'm able to introduce them to Ntozake Shange, and they never knew anything about her. So in that sense, it's magical.
You know, let's go back 30 years ago on Broadway. I saw it when I was a Girl Scout. It was magical, you know. But also, at the same time, as a young child who did not have that type of relationship with men, I came out of the theater thinking, y'all ain't nothing.
The men are nothing?
Yeah, I did. But at the same time, let me finish. At the same time, I did love the production and so forth. But
the film or the play?
The play. Now, going back, you know, the same criticism that we're having today, that's the same criticism that was having 30 years ago, 25 years ago. And mind you that the production, the Broadway production, was directed by a man, Scott. You know, and he's a working producer and director now, you know. So I just think that is how ironic, you know, 30 years from now, you would think that a woman would be directing it. You know, Nzinga Stewart, I think she was signed to it. And I believe
she was part of it
She formed a relationship with Ntozake Shange. And she had been working on this script, I believe, for 5 years.
She had.
She had, you know, and Ntozake Shange, thank you. Ntozake Shange gave the green light to Tyler Perry.
To the person who was going to be able to make it come to life.
Okay.
I mean, I think there's always going to be the tension between commerce and art is an old battle.
Right.
And there is no question that the commercial power of a Tyler Perry means that this reaches audiences that would never otherwise see it. And that is certainly part of what is magical. What is also magical is so much of Ntozake Shange's words are still up on the big screen. From the book, it's still like intact. To see poetry in a commercial Hollywood setting is a rare, rare thing. That's definitely a beautiful thing. But I think that, and I hold true to it, some elements of it are just, when you think about the play in 1976, historically, you're talking about the Black Power movement, the Black feminist movement. It was a particular time in history. Now, it's updated in terms of the film, but some of the themes don't make sense. But it's still the issue of how the women are treated through the lens of Tyler Perry, and I think that's about his personal issues around how he perceives Black women, and I think it's deeply problematic.
Well, okay. When I went to see the movie, I saw it with my girlfriend Monifa, and there were 3 men that saw the film. They didn't come with us, but we wound up having a discussion afterwards. It was really interesting. 2 of them were gay, and 1 of them was straight. And it was interesting because one of the 2 that were gay wanted me to know that they were gay because they wanted to point out the fact that homosexual men can relate to female issues, that they understand and that they are supportive. that homosexual black men, because you know the brother in the film that was on the down low, that's another spoiler. But they said, you know, it's important for you to understand as women that homosexual men are, many of us are very supportive of black women and the issues that are affecting black women, and that we support that. And I thought that that was interesting that they wanted to tell me that. And I said, okay, because they wanted to come out and support his films. Now, I don't know how many men have come out to see this, but Tyler Perry's audience is what? Mostly women, African-American women over the ages of 25. I thought it was interesting that I went to RottenTomatoes.com, and that's a critic review site. 33% of the critics panned the film. I mean, 33% approved, so 2/3 panned the film. Whereas 81% of the audiences loved the movie.
Yes, yes.
So then you go, so who is he trying to appeal to? Is he trying to appeal to the critics? Or is he trying to appeal to his base, which is mostly African-American female? Which one would you care more for if you're a director?
Tyler does not have to appeal to his critics. All he has to do is do what he wants to do.
Unless he wants an Oscar.
His critics are going to bash him. Listen, this guy from the Huffington Post, Marshall Fine, says, let's just say For Colored Girls is a barely competent film, which is a big step up for Perry. In the hands of another filmmaker, those actresses might have approached award-winning level. I'm sorry, Macy Gray already turned that in. She already turned in an Oscar level.
On that note, let's talk about the cast. You know, let's talk about the cast. You saw the play 30
I saw
years
the
ago
play and I saw
Broadway.
the movie.
Let's make a comparison with the cast.
I don't think that there's a comparison. It's two different media. On the stage, Trezana Beverly was just incredible and powerful and deserving of her Tony Award. And in the film, there has been an adaptation. There have been changes. There has been some massaging of it to fit it onto the screen and to make it relevant to today.
Just to make 2 points about Tyler Perry, I do think he is traditionally, he can be a clumsy screenwriter. But this is what I respect about Tyler Perry, that he has the kind of entrepreneurial spirit that builds industries. And we are a people who needs our own industry that's independent of how Hollywood thinks, acts, or works. Now, the challenge in some of that is coonery and buffoonery has been on the screen when it comes to black folk for a long, 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 long time and many, many years. But what I do respect about him is he speaks to an audience that has been traditionally ignored, dismissed, marginalized, disrespected, and overlooked by Hollywood. And when you watch his films, I know when I think of all the young women that I mentee, they all love Tyler Perry because they all say, my mama is the heroine. In the film with Angela Bassett, when she's a single mother with 3 kids, and her 3 kids are by 3 different men, she gets the man, the house, the this, or that, she gets to be the heroine. And when you watch the wedding scenes, and you look at who's in the wedding scenes, and I think about church on a Sunday morning, I can see a correlation. So there's a whole element of black folks, African Americans, who see themselves on the screen, who are ignored by Hollywood. Tyler Perry could give a toss about his critics. He's very much about his audience.
A beloved Harlem principal was yanked from her post after she had a lesbian romance with an assistant principal, then gave her a lousy review. Crystal Simmons, founding principal of the Academy of Social Action, turned to officials for help after her former lover, Candy Jones, threatened to murder her. I wanted to ask you ladies, do you think she should be ousted because she had this affair? And mind you, I forgot to say that Cindy did say that she was only kidding about threatening her ex-lover's life.
Well, nowadays, you really can't kid about anything. You can't kid about blowing things up. You can't kid about killing someone because it's too real. It's too real in our society. I think it's unfortunate that these women were put themselves in this position. I see in the workplace flirtation, a relationship, and a sexual liaison will end up with you getting a poor review from your superior. It's like it's sexual harassment. If you do it, you can be punished, and if you don't do it, you can be punished.
I think it's very unprofessional, if true. I think it's very unprofessional behavior. I think it's a lack of concern about the children in the school, and I know that she's valued as a wonderful principal, and that's really unfortunate because I think who suffers the most is the children. You know, they're going to lose a great principal, but then there is a correlation between how she judges professional behavior on school grounds and in how she relates to the children.
You know, no matter how cute, you just can't really get away with sleeping with the boss. That's really what it is. I mean, it just doesn't work. And the reality is that the repercussions are always threefold. There's personal, in terms of what's going to happen to you, the relationship that you have professionally with that institution, and then who you're working for. And it just doesn't end up well, it never does. There's also a legality issue, and there's an abuse of power issue. And so in the end, there are so few great teachers and principals out there, and the public school system in New York City is under siege. So you don't need to lose another great anybody. Like, you really can't afford to do that. I think part of the sensationalism of it, though, is because it's a lesbian affair.
Jones is really, I'm wondering if her poor review is really not so much from the workplace, but from the bedroom.
Could do better.
Needs improvement.